Good evening, everybody. I hope you're having a great week. Welcome to another Total Wellness mini masterclass. It's all about gut health this evening. So, for those of you that don't know me, my name's Lou Wilson. I am the owner and coach at Elemental Coaching for body, mind and nutrition. So we offer personal training and nutrition coaching. I'm also a mum of two, and I've been running these short mini wellness mini masterclasses over the last few weeks. So if you've missed any and you're interested to know what's available, just let me know. I can point you in the right direction of the recordings. So this evening is all about gut health. So we're going to look at what is gut health, what does it mean, why is it so important for our overall well-being in so many different areas, and what can we do to support good gut health. So I'm going to try and whiz you through all that in about 20 minutes. All right, so what is gut health? So we're really talking about two related areas. One is like the structural health of the gastrointestinal tract, so how well it absorbs nutrients, how well it keeps toxins out of the body. And then the other is the diversity of what's called our gut microbiome or our gut flora. They mean the same thing. You might have heard those two terms. So that is the massive collection of bacteria and friendly organisms and some unfriendly organisms that live in our gastrointestinal tract, and they perform a ton of key functions in the body. And we've just kind of started to, scratch the iceberg, tip of the iceberg as to what is, all the many things that gut health is important for, and we're understanding a lot more about that now than we used to. So we're going to talk about what influences gut health and what we can do about it shortly, but just to start with, let's think about why it's so important for our overall well-being and health. So our gastrointestinal tract, or GI, I'll call it the GI because that's less of a mouthful. It not only brings in and processes food, I'm sure we're all familiar with that, but it does so much more in our body. So for example, it contains a large percentage of our serotonin. So that is the hormone that stabilizes our feelings of well-being and happiness. It gives us a physical and a chemical barrier against pathogens and toxins, so things that we want to keep out of the rest of the body. It detoxifies or plays an important role in detoxifying potentially harmful substances like alcohol, for example. It contains what is now being referred to as the second brain, or the enteric nervous system. And so our brain and our gut are very kind of directly linked, and we're understanding more about that as time goes on. And this is why we immediately feel certain emotions and feelings like anxiety or heightened stress or fear in our guts. That's why our stomach is so rapidly affected by stuff like that. Our gut also secretes hormones that perform all kinds of functions throughout the body. So reproductive hormones, mood hormones, all kinds of stuff. And the gut crucially helps regulate our immune system. So it's now thought that about 75% of our immunity starts from our gut or is influenced by a healthy gut. So that is like massive in terms of overall health and day-to-day well-being. So given the gut performs so many functions in the body, it's not surprising then that the health of the diversity of our gut microbiome can have such an impact on so many areas of our well-being. So in terms of kind of what the science behind that is, I'm not going to go deep into it, but it's helpful to understand just like the basics of the physiology so we can kind of see what the connection is in real terms between the gut and the rest of our health. So when the gut wall is irritated or inflamed, these really tight junctions, or what should be very tight junctions between its cells, they can loosen up and we get increased permeability or like increased gaps, or what's commonly known as leaky gut syndrome. What's the problem with this? The problem with that is that where the gut can normally be really selective about what it keeps in and what it releases out into the rest of the body, if it's leaky, if those joints are loosened, it can't be as selective anymore. So it might slam the door shut on potentially beneficial nutrients, but actually kind of welcome in some of the more dangerous bacteria or harmful bacteria that we don't want, and it might let out toxins or pathogens or bacteria out into the body that we want to ideally have kept in the GI tract. So that's the problem with it, and this can stimulate an immune response or inflammation. It can put stress on the brain, it can put stress on the liver. So leaky gut syndrome at the kind of, at the more serious end of the spectrum has been linked to many health concerns. So things like type 1 diabetes, allergies, mental illness, even such as depression, skin inflammations or conditions like acne, rosacea, eczema, and asthma as well. So it can have, at its worst, it can have some really serious consequences. Obviously, if you are experiencing any of those symptoms, if you're at all worried about anything, and those are symptoms which can be caused by a number of other things going on in the body as well. So if you've got any concerns around any of those, please just go and see a doctor. Don't try and sort of self-diagnose or start with your gut health and see what happens. If you've got any sort of symptoms that you're concerned about, even if you think it might be related to the gut, it could be something else. So if it's more serious and it's causing you worry, then go and see a doctor. There are some less serious but still really uncomfortable symptoms or signs that your gut health or our gut health might not be so good. There are the things which we would kind of readily associate with the gut, so excessive gas, excessive burping, bloated stomach, poor digestion, issues going to the loo, kind of a burning sensation in the stomach, even bad breath, or nausea, those kinds of very obviously kind of stomach and gastro related things. But there are lots of much less obvious symptoms or potential symptoms of a disturbed gut or poor gut health, or the gut microbiome being out of balance. So, and the range of these symptoms is really wide, and it can include things like joint pain, disturbed sleep, skin irritation, fatigue, headaches, mood change. There's all kinds of things that we're now increasingly understanding can be really strongly influenced by or can emanate from poor balance in the gut and poor gut health. Again, if you've got some of those things can be caused by many other sort of things going on in the body as well. So always go and see a doctor if you've got any concerns. But for many people, improving their gut health can have a really positive impact on their well-being, and there's lots of really easy things that we can do. So I'm going to look at those in a moment. Before that, what are the things that we need to try and sort of reduce or not do ideally? So there are things that can cause or precipitate or exacerbate poor gut health, and I'll run through what those are now. So the long-term or frequent use of some pharmaceutical drugs. Now, obviously, these might be medically necessary for somebody, and you definitely don't want to make any changes to any drugs that you've been prescribed or that you're taking regularly without seeing a doctor. Really, really, really important. But it's now understood that some of the drugs that are really commonly used in Western medicine, so non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, which is just a technical term for things like ibuprofen, which might be branded as Nurofen, for example, antibiotics, even birth control, sort of long-term or frequent use of those things it's now been shown can have a poor impact on gut health. So definitely, if you think that might be a concern, go and see a doctor, and don't make any changes to that before you consult with your doctor, but that can definitely be a contributing factor. Excessive sugar intake or excessive intake of highly refined carbohydrates, so not just the actual sugar, table sugar that we might be putting in our tea or coffee, but refined sugar so white sugar basically that we would find in things like high sugar cereals, high sugar cereal bars, biscuits, sweets, anywhere where you're going to find highly refined carbohydrate or sugar. The reason being, excessive sugar intake contributes to inflammation in our cells, through our whole body. And this inflammation is harmful to the diversity and the function of the bacteria in the gut. So sugar is definitely something which, if we reduce it, it can help our gut health a lot. Excessive alcohol consumption, or regularly sort of consuming quite a lot of alcohol, even if it's not sort of dangerously excessive, it can still be having that. It puts the gut under stress and the gut flora under stress. Pathogenic bacteria, so things like E. coli. We all have E. coli in our body. We all have all kinds of pathogenic bacteria which just sort of live happily in our body at a low level. They don't cause us any harm, but they can, if there's too much of it, or for some people, compromise gut health. Obviously, it's really difficult to control this, and it's unfortunate if we get ill from something like E. coli, that we can't have helped that. But what we can do is pay extra attention to supporting our gut health if we know that we've had a pathogenic bacteria in our body. If we've been diagnosed with that, then we know that actually doing a bit more to look after our gut health is going to be really, really important. And then the last two things, stress, acute stress, short-term acute stress or long-term chronic stress. Again, because it promotes an inflammatory response in the body, and then it compromises the health of the diversity of our gut microbiome. And then lastly, low fibre intake is tough on our gut health, because fibre is prebiotic. So I'll just, in very simple terms, explain the difference between prebiotic, probiotic. We hear these symptoms all the time. There's adverts on the telly for probiotic yogurts and prebiotic this and this, that and the other. So Prebiotic is basically food for the good bacteria. So that's why prebiotics are important. And fibre is a prebiotic. So having a good amount of fibre in our diet from whole grain sources, from veggies, those are our two best sources of fibre. That and fruit as well. Anything with the skin on in particular, that is food. That's prebiotic. That's food for the good bacteria. So that's brilliant. Probiotics are slightly different. They help maintain a healthy balance and diversity of good bacteria in the body. And certain types of probiotics, can also aid digestion and improve some of those gastrointestinal issues that people might be experiencing. So, what can we do proactively, as well as trying to reduce or address those things? What can we do proactively to look after our gut health? So, got 1, 2, 3, 4, about 9 top tips. I think I'll whiz through them. 8 actually. So try and get to the root cause is the first thing. This is really difficult. Obviously, you might not be able to do that. But if there is something that is out of sorts that you've not noticed before, then just pay attention to that and definitely speak with a professional if you're not sure. It might be your doctor in the first instance. It might be a nutritionist or a nutrition coach, depending on your level of concern and what you're experiencing. But have a bit of a think about any changes that you've made in your diet or anything that's going on in your life that's different, like, for example, heightened stress. Have you taken antibiotics recently? Just have a think back to those things that we've just talked through and see if that might be what's going on, because then that helps you make an action plan going forward. Balance your bacteria. So we can take probiotic and prebiotic rich foods regularly. And these are things like probiotic yogurt, anything that's fermented, so not just things that are sort of pickled in vinegar, like pickled onions, for example, or pickled beetroot, but stuff that's actually fermented. So fermented pickles, kefir, though anything that's fermented is going to help get some of that good bacteria into our gut. So trying to have some of those in your diet on a regular basis is great. Slowing down eating is another thing that we can do. So just the process of slowing down our eating a bit and chewing well, just chewing normally. I'm not talking about 15 chews for every mouthful or anything like that, but just being conscious of not wolfing our food down can really help, because it's important for enzyme release, getting the enzymes released into the gastrointestinal tract, so the body knows what's going on. It has time to break food down properly, and then it's more manageable for the gut and for our gut health. So that's another one. Eating plenty of omega-3s. So things like flaxseed, walnuts, hemp seeds, chia seeds, lots of different seeds are a good source of omega-3. Fish or algae, you can get vegan algae-based supplements from omega-3 if you don't want to have fish. Other some of the high healthy fat foods like olives, avocados, nuts. These all, so that intake of omega-3 helps moderate inflammation. And as we've just discovered, low inflammation helps our gut flora stay nice and healthy and diverse. Flavonoids, something called flavonoids, can help improve gut health, and those are found in fruits, vegetables, any kind of beans. Even tea and coffee is a good source of flavonoids. So we don't want to be having an excessive amount of tea or coffee, but a little bit of tea or coffee in our diet is one good source of flavonoids. But fruits and veggies are great. And also, you'll be getting the fibre from those as well. So it's a win-win. That's really good for our gut health on two fronts. Recovery and sleep is really, really important. So, we can't live without stress, and actually we don't necessarily want to live without any stress at all, because a moderate amount of stress in some ways is physiologically is kind of good for our body, and that's a whole other topic, so we might cover that on another session. But high levels of stress, unmanageable, uncomfortable levels of stress are gonna contribute potentially to poor gut health because of that inflammatory response, and as is poor sleep as well. So that's one thing that's not always easy to improve sleep and stress, but it's definitely something to try and tackle if you can. Eating real foods. We've just got 2 more. Eating real food sounds kind of weird, doesn't it? But by real food, I mean whole foods, so foods that are as close to their natural state as possible. So a little bit of processing is fine. It's not like, we can't just sort of pick a wheat chaff or a bunch of rice from a field and just eat it. We have to process stuff to a certain degree so that it's actually, so that we can actually consume it. So, but the closer something is to its natural state, the less processed it is, the more our bodies recognize it. You know, our bodies have like a long-standing, millions and millions of years relationship with whole foods or real foods. We actually have a relatively short relationship in evolutionary terms with highly processed foods and foods that have a lot of preservatives and a lot of additives, or have been, you know, processed to the extent that they're really far removed from their original state. So our bodies, you know, we're still learning about this, but in evolutionary terms, our bodies are not necessarily great at recognizing those foods yet and knowing what to do with them. And that has been shown, it's increasingly being shown that that has an impact on our gut health potentially. Increasing fibre, we talked about with fruits, veggies, beans, legumes, whole grains, nuts, all of that stuff. A lot of whole grains are also probiotic, which is brilliant. And lastly, considering a digestive enzyme or a prebiotic supplement. So this is something which, you know, anyone can consider. It's especially helpful to consider for people in their sort of 40s onwards, because our gut health, even if we're, you know, leading a relatively healthy lifestyle, our gut health starts to be compromised a little bit just naturally with age from our 40s onwards. And so it's a good idea to look at like a broad-based multi-enzyme digestive supplement with some prebiotic in it if you can. So there's lots of brands out there, but as an Arbonne independent consultant, so as part of my nutrition coaching business, I recommend and offer Arbonne's healthy living products, because I've done a lot of research and I just think that they are the best out there. They're all vegan, they're all free from anything artificial at all, they're all certified gluten-free, which is great for anyone that's got gluten concerns or is celiac. And they're just super clean ingredients. The ingredient policy is so strict. They're just absolutely brilliant, high quality. So we do have one. It's called Gut Health, Microbiome and Digestion Support. It's designed like anything, like any supplement, to amplify the benefits of a healthy diet. It is not a replacement for any of the things we've just talked about, you know, any of the changes that we can make day to day. But on top of those changes or alongside, it can really give a helping hand, particularly, as I've said, if you're somebody in their 40s onwards. I mean, at any age really, but particularly from that age onwards, when, as I say, our gut health naturally declines a little bit as we age. I've completely forgotten to have some in front of me, so I can't show it to you, which is crazy. So I should have done that, but apologies. But it's in a stick, it's powdered, it's in a box of 30 and it's in a stick format, which is brilliant because it's powdered. It doesn't require any refrigeration. So there's a few probiotic supplements and prebiotic supplements out there that have to be kept in the fridge. But this is literally just a powder stick in a little packet that you can take anywhere and use anywhere. Mixes really easily with water. It's got a very mild ginger taste to it. It's really pleasant. So you can just take it with water, or you can add it to a smoothie if you're doing a fruit smoothie or something, a protein shake if you're using protein shakes. You can put it in our Energy Fizz, which some of you who are watching might be using our Energy Fizz, which is great for relieving fatigue. And supporting energy on a day-to-day basis. Because it is such a mild taste, it's really versatile, and once you've added it to a smoothie or a protein shake, for example, you won't taste that it's in there. So that's an option. Because I appreciate you all watching so very much, so for anyone that's watching live, for anyone that's watching the recording, I really appreciate you watching, and I would love to give a special offer to viewers that are on here tonight and on the recording. So I'm happy to offer 35% off of our gut health supplement for the first 5 people that place an order in the next couple of days. So obviously, if you'd like to know more about it, have a look at what we call our Meet the Product sheet, which will give you more information before you make a decision. I completely understand that. So just shoot any questions at me. And also, if you've got any questions in general about anything that we've covered this evening or gut health, then feel free to get in touch. Okay, so that's what I wanted to cover this evening. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's been useful. Thank you ever so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you on the next mini masterclass. All right, take care. Have a good evening. Bye.